Hello and welcome back to the Bird's Eye View podcast. We are here on Monday, January 15th. I'm Zach Worden, joined as always by Jori Negin-Shecter. Jori, it's been 2 days since we chatted. How was your weekend?
Weekend's been pretty good. Excited to get into this episode. Got a very, very exciting guest coming your way very shortly.
Yeah, we're super excited to be joined by Brennan Orf. Today, Brennan was the 13th round pick of the Blue Jays last year out of Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville. Left-handed hitting outfielder / first baseman. So really excited to get him on the pod and chat a little bit about him joining the organization and just overall becoming a Blue Jay in the past season.
Yeah, some really good insight from him, especially even kind of inside baseball with him talking a bit about approach and the way that he's really kind of evolved as a player with the Blue Jays. Some of the stuff that he's done, some of the work that he's done with the Blue Jays, a really cool interview, a really good opportunity to chat with him and get some insight on the development side of the Blue Jays efforts.
Yeah, really exciting guy in the Blue Jay system out of last year's draft class. So that chat was super fun. We'll send you to that right now, and then we'll be back after to talk a little bit of the latest in Blue Jays land. We are very glad to be joined by a special guest today, Toronto Blue Jays prospect Brennan Orf. Brennan, thanks so much for taking the time to do this today, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. How's the offseason been treating you so far?
It's been going well. I've been basically in St. Louis majority of the time. Supposed to go down to Florida in about a week, but I wish it was this week because it's like negative outside St. Louis right now. So
yeah, I was actually going to ask if you guys were getting kind of the cold snap there as well, but it's been crazy up here, just a ton of snow and everything like that. So
yeah, it's hasn't been snowing that much, but it's been really, really cold. So not really enjoying it.
Yeah, it'd be nice to get to Florida for sure.
Yeah.
How I mean, kind of for you with making your debut in Dunedin last year, how did you kind of find the complex and everything down there?
You're talking about the Dunedin complex?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really nice. I mean, it's where they play spring training at the major league team. So I mean, the facilities are really nice and everything you need is there. The clubhouse is super cool. The stadium's really cool. And I mean, it's really close to the beach as well. And it's just really Sunday games were kind of a grind with how hot it got. But besides that, it was really nice.
Brennan, obviously last year came out of the gate pretty strong, had a really strong year. And the thing that I think both of us were talking about before we hit the record button is, I mean, the eye kind of speaks for itself, the almost 1-to-1 walk to strikeout ratio. We appreciate a good, take a splitter down away and spit on it for a ball type of ball player. So for you, how long have you kind of had this kind of affinity for the strike zone?
I felt like I had it in high school. I think there's always like as you move up levels, there's a little bit of adjustment with just like new pitchers and what pitches they can throw and everything like that. And every level takes a little bit. So I feel like I've had a good eye for the strike zone. And as the zone gets a little narrower from, college to pro ball, I mean, I think it helped me out a little bit, but also, people are pretty nasty and have to get used to that as well.
Well, how did you find that your first year playing affiliate, how was it for you?
I think it went pretty well. They kind of just threw me in the fire there. Like we didn't really talk about anything to improve or anything to do much before I went to affiliate because we were in a draft camp and I left basically right after that was over, and that was basically just an introduction and just like tell you how the Blue Jays work as an organization. So I got there and there wasn't really much direction for me right there. It was just kind of like sink or swim moment, try to figure it out. But after the season, they were telling me some things to improve and what to do. So I really appreciate that as well.
For you, kind of this offseason, I guess, kind of adding on to that, what has kind of been your focus with your training? Is that kind of like coming from the Blue Jays and kind of that stuff that they're telling you that you've been working on mostly this winter?
Yeah, I worked with I went to Instructs for about a month right after the season, was staying in the complex and basically I was with Craig Perry, our hitting coordinator, almost every day, and we were just talking about hitting and basically what I should try to do for this upcoming year. And a lot of it was just trying to be in my legs a little more and figure out what's the right position for my legs, stride, and everything like that. And I think, it was a little awkward at first, but I think we pretty much figured it out. And we'll see once we get going. I mean, probably going to be facing live hitter or live pitchers here soon. So see how it translates to that.
How excited are you to get going?
Yeah, it should be really fun. I mean, this is my first like spring training, I guess,
Yeah.
kind of thing. So, don't really have any expectations going in, but like it should be pretty exciting. Trying to see as many great pitchers as I can really before the season starts.
Anybody maybe in particular you're looking forward to, I guess, facing or anything like that, or even just meeting?
Uh I wouldn't say anything in particular, no one in particular. I mean, they're all just like anyone I face is pretty cool. So it's just like, I just want to have the experience and just really see everyone pitch. Yeah.
Going back a little bit to last year, kind of with you and being in the draft and being picked by the Blue Jays in the 13th round, what was the draft experience like for you? Were the Jays a team that you were kind of expecting to go to? Were they a team that you've been in contact with kind of in the lead up to the draft?
Yeah, they were the first team to contact me,
Okay.
or guess, first team that I had like a Zoom call with, and that was in probably December. And I mean, I didn't really hear much after that, except like where I was going to play summer ball and told them the draft league and stuff like that. But like, it was actually in day two, I got a call from the Jays, and it was like basically what I'd signed for. But I was like, talk to my advisor and stuff like that because I didn't want to get into that. So,
Yeah.
once that slipped day two, I was like, oh, all right, they're probably out. But I guess took a chance on day three, so it was really nice. I mean, I love the organization, I love what they've been doing, so it's really cool.
So are you like do you follow MLB much? Like kind of growing up, were you a big Cardinals fan? What was are you kind of into the whole baseball thing like that, or kind of just more something that you're focused kind of on the field?
Yeah, I was I mean, definitely when you grow up in St. Louis, and like when I was a kid, it was like, you know, Albert Pujols,
Yeah.
Yachty, and everyone like that. And it's like really hard not to be a huge baseball fan with everything going on there. It was very fortunate when I was growing up because I guess they went to the World Series like three times, won one of them or won two of them when I can remember. So I mean, I really got into the game that way and just like really fell in love with it because there's always there's a special buzz around postseason baseball. I mean, other sports have it, but I mean, I feel like there's something just special that gathers people together with it.
Yeah, you guys over in St. Louis definitely spoiled with, I mean, Pujols and Yadi, of course, and a lot of postseason success. Brennan, I'd be curious to ask you, as far as this upcoming year, we spoke kind of a little bit about it, but what are you really looking to really improve on, and kind of do you have any stated kind of goals this year?
I don't think I have any stated goals or like stats wise. It's just mainly just basically performing well over the whole course of the year. I mean, it's gonna be the most amount of games that I played in a year, and it's gonna be 6 times a week, 7 times a week, and I think it's more so like getting my body used to that and ready for that. I mean, I was only at the affiliate for I think four weeks, and like week two or three, I was like, oh wow, this is a lot more than my body and everything's used to at the moment. So I think just trying to get used to that and also having a routine with just like everything hitting, waking up, what I eat and stuff like that, and just getting that down. It's just something that I need to do. And I think that will help on the field stuff as well.
Do you have like any semblance of an idea kind of where you're going to start? Like kind of thinking you're going to start back in Dunedin? Any chance you start in Vancouver? Kind of anything like that?
I'm not sure yet. I mean, either one would be nice. So, but haven't really got any details on that. I think they'll probably tell me once get in spring training and see how everything goes like that, and when they finally make teams. So
Have you had the chance to make it north of the border in any capacity, whether that is, checking out Vancouver or even like Toronto, of course?
I have not. So yeah, when I got drafted, I had to renew my passport. I haven't been out of the country in a little bit, so it should be fun. I've heard very good things about both Toronto and Vancouver. I mean, I've heard Vancouver is beautiful and like it's kind of on like there's different islands and stuff like that. I don't know how specifically it works, but looks like a cool place to be at for a while.
So we try to do a little bit of the Canadian baseball thing on this podcast as well, and of course your roommate at Southern Illinois there, Avery, who was also
Hmm.
drafted this past year, is from Saskatoon. Do you have do you talk to him a little bit about Saskatoon at all? Is that like a topic that came up a lot between you guys?
I mean, we always talk about just we talk about him being from Canada and stuff, and just like his dad's from Ghana and his mom's from Canada, and just like kind of crazy how like that kind of works with him. And like I remember he told me about it, and like when I got drafted, he FaceTimed me and he had a Blue Jays hat on. And, like yeah, stuff like that. But yeah, it's cool because like when I was in the draft league, also I had a roommate from Canada, and then my roommate on the road was Bryce Arnold for
Oh yeah.
um or at home for the Dunedin Blue Jays. So it's like there's a lot of Canadian roommates over the years. I was like, I should have saw it coming.
It was meant to be.
Exactly. Yeah. Set it up perfectly.
Yeah.
I actually wanted to ask you about the draft league because it's something that I think the maybe general like baseball fandom isn't very aware of. So for you, like kind of what was behind your decision to go play in that league, and how did you find that experience?
Yeah. I'd say I was a guy that was like I was a mid-major guy. So I mean, going to the draft league or a high up league was probably pretty important to see like different competition and wood bat and stuff like that to see if you could climb up the draft board or even get drafted. I wasn't sure where I was at before, but yeah, it was a cool experience. I mean, there's a lot of good guys up there. I think they probably about 5 or 6 guys got picked up or drafted this year from my team. Um, I remember like draft day, they're posting stuff on the MLB draft league that like people are getting picked up left and right. And I mean, it was a cool experience as well. There's a lot of pro guys as well, just like working and who you played against. I mean, and also I was fortunate enough to play. I don't know if you've seen him, but the Kasumba Dennis guy.
Yeah.
He's on Twitter and stuff. Like he went to the Dubai League. He was on my team, so I got to meet him and stuff like that. And it's
Nice.
pretty cool. Just hear his story a little bit.
Yeah, that's super cool. Kind of going from there to pro ball basically. What did you find to be just basically the biggest adjustment from whether it be college or the draft league to joining the affiliated ranks?
Uh I feel like usually for college and like summer ball, there's usually like a drop off at some point during like the weekend or stuff like that. But I feel like a lot of pro teams or affiliate teams are pretty deep in their pitching and stuff like that. So I mean, every hit, every AB is going to be a grind no matter what. And as I talked about earlier, just the volume of games, it's game every day. It's like you gotta try to work on your swing while you're playing every day and stuff like that. It's just trying to figure out what needs to be tinkered, how many swings are too much and stuff like that.
Can you think of maybe sort of one moment that either synthesizes or generally speaking that kind of speaks to maybe a welcome to pro ball moment?
Uh I know it was like my first week down there. With Jonathan Lazario. I think I'm saying that right, for the Yankees, was rehabbing, and he pitched against us one game, and I was like, well, I've seen this guy, on the show, on the TV, everything before. Fouled off a fastball, and then second pitch, he threw me a slider, and I was like, all right, this is gonna end middle, and it just kept coming in on me, kept coming in. It was like ended up black and just popped out. I was like, yeah, I haven't seen a slider like that ever. So that was a lot of fun. But yeah, it's really cool. Like when these pro guys, even on our team, when they come rehab. I mean, my first week, Chad Green was rehabbing with us, and it was just a really cool experience just to, see him pitch and warm up and stuff like that.
That's pretty cool. I mean, was there kind of anybody else around or that you got to meet that was really cool for you, like in whether it's through the draft process or after it, that was kind of like I maybe not an on the field welcome to pro ball moment, but something that was really cool to you that stood out about joining the organization or anything like that?
Uh, I mean, I really can't pin down one moment. I feel
Yeah.
like it's just so cool. Like, when we get there and like there's all these people. I mean, it's a bit overwhelming sometimes. There's all these people, they know you and you have no idea like who they are at the moment and stuff like that. But then you start to learn who they are and everything. But yeah, I wouldn't say there was one moment in particular, but the
Yeah.
experience is crazy.
So I'm curious too, because obviously like Jori asked you a little bit about it earlier, like being very aware of the strike zone and everything like that. But for you coming into pro ball, how were you able to, you mentioned it with like facing a guy like Loizaga where he's like so disgusting, right? And I imagine like most of the pitchers there are kind of like that step up. How are you able to maintain that like really good approach into pro ball? Is it just something that you don't really have to think about at this point, or is it something that you kind of had to control coming in where you're like, I need to stay within myself and not chase, even though, I can imagine the temptation being there to try and like prove yourself and get a little bit bigger and as you move up the ranks.
Yeah, I mean, everyone throws a bit harder. Their stuff is a bit sharper, but I mean, sometimes that actually plays out better for you, especially with the automated strike zone, because it gives you less like indecisiveness. It's just like, all right, he's throwing, mid 90s, upper 90s, like has a wipeout slider. If I see it, like I know it's going to be a ball or my body won't be able to react in time, kind of thing. So it's like that's basically how it is. So how I think about it, if my body's not able to react to it really well, then it's probably not in the strike zone. So just try to set up in that stance and make sure like I can get to the outside, but like anything more, my body's going to be like reaching for it or anything like that.
Yeah.
The same on the inside. Just like if I feel like I'm going to get handcuffed, it's probably a ball as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's super interesting. I mean, for you, if you were to kind of obviously like the chase rate and the walk rate stuff, like all really stands out. But for you, like coming in out of your senior year in in college is like super impressive. Where you or your junior year, sorry, your draft season, super impressive. Like a ton of power, hit for average on base, like all conference player. Coming in, how would you kind of describe your overall approach at the plate? Like I obviously like you just kind of described like what you're looking for pitch wise, but for you as a player, like just kind of the whole package, what would you kind of describe yourself as to Blue Jays fans?
Uh, I'd say approach wise, I'm always trying to be on time for the fastball. I think that's very important for a lot of hitters. I mean, and I try to go off that, so I'll think like, all right, fastball, maybe middle in. And if I'm down and on time for that, then I'll be able to hit the other way. But also like when I'm down and ready for that, I try to think like the opposite gap as well. Like I want to be down on time for the inside fastball, but I want to try to hit the other way a little bit. So I just try to kind of blend those, make sure, I'm not doing too much of one or the other. Because I mean, if you think inside fastball too much, you can kind of get too much spin, rotation kind of thing, pull off a lot of rollovers. And if you think the other way, then you can get, jammed a lot, not not very powerful, trying to push balls and stuff like that. So just trying to blend those.
Yeah. That's I mean, I guess that's kind of everything that I had laid out. I mean, Jori, if you're all good, Brennan, we really appreciate the time. Thanks so much for doing this. It was a pleasure to get to speak with you, and we wish you the best of luck this season.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that. And best of luck to you guys with this podcast and everything.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Like
Really
what you're
appreciate
doing.
it. All right, we are back. Thanks again to Brennan for joining us. That was super fun. Really enjoyed getting the chance to chat with him. Really excited to see how he does this year.
Yeah, I would be curious where he'll be playing next year. We spoke a little bit about him. He didn't quite have anything to say on that, but would not be shocked if we see Brennan make his way up to the high minors if his first stint of pro ball is any indication.
Yeah, I mean, you look into the numbers a little bit from him at Dunedin, and you know, he's 224, 439, 308 slash, and just obviously like we kind of beating a dead horse at this point, but obviously like the OBP stuff is crazy. So he had 13% chase rate in his debut at Dunedin. So I wouldn't be surprised if they pushed him to Vancouver, but I also wouldn't be surprised if he started in Dunedin. So
Yeah, sneaky name in the Jays farm, which maybe doesn't have the headliners outside of Tiedemann and Martinez, but there are definitely guys that you kind of like for various reasons.
yeah, I think we've kind of had this chat, but I mean the Blue Jay system obviously doesn't quite have the top end guys, like the top 100 types, like just probably like two or three at this point. But it's getting deeper. Like the system is pretty deep overall when you go down, and you know, I mean, we kind of saw the result of that this past year with like Schneider and Horowitz coming up. So I think he's just another guy that fits into that with a chance to really pop over the next couple of years for sure.
Yeah, and advanced in all kind of relative situations, given he's 22, and if he can accelerate his development, he's a guy that maybe not this year, but in the moderate to near future. And the Jays have a couple guys like that. Obviously, you've got the big names, a guy like Nimala or of course Barea, or maybe a little further away, given that they're a little younger. But the Jays have done a pretty good job, I believe, as far as finding some college guys that can contribute. So look for any number of those guys to be making their way up the minors.
Yeah, well, speaking of the minor league system today, excuse me, a big day in those or big day for those who are big fans of prospects and keeping tabs on the farm system, as it is the international free agency signing day. And the Toronto Blue Jays this year, not quite the same spending pool as they had last year when they spent 4.1 million on Emmanuel Bonilla, but 5.1 this year. And you can read Shai Davidi's article at Sportsnet where they kind of spread it around a little bit, grabbing a couple. I guess headlining the class are Franklin Rojas, a catcher, and Junior Arias. So, you know, it's hard to like make much of these guys because they're 16, 17 years old, and they're going to be in the Dominican League for you know, at least this year, maybe next year, depends on obviously how things go. But yeah, super exciting to get a bunch of new guys into the system and add them that way.
Yeah, I mean, you want to look at an obvious example. Vlad Guerrero Jr., they signed in 2015 and took until 2019 to make it to the big leagues. And he was a pretty exceptional prospect, right? So a lot of these guys almost close to a decade out, maybe not quite that long, but you're looking long term with these guys. But uh, you mentioned Shai Davidi's article. The Blue Jays, Andrew Tanish spoke at length, it sounds like, with regards to Junior Arias and his thoughts on him. And it sounds like there's a lot of athletic prowess there. There's some excitement there as far as his explosiveness, his ability to maybe play a premium position in center field. So some guys to look out for, but also maybe temper expectations, given that these guys cannot legally drink in Quebec, never mind Ontario.
Yeah, it's yeah, we'll see. I'm you know, this obviously isn't like necessarily totally related to the class of guys that they're bringing in, but Shy drops a little nugget towards the end in regards to Warland Soto, where he says a deliberate push by the Blue Jays to better balance out the handedness in their farm system. So you know, we just spoke to a promising left-handed hitter. So that might be something that we might see a little bit more of in the years to come, where the team is, if they're actually deliberately looking to add lefties in the system.
Yeah, well, that's on the hitting side. On the pitching side, it kind of sounds like they're in the mix for a certain lefty, and we can get into that as far as all these Blake Snell rumors. What do you make of them? Because I don't know how I feel about that.
They what's the difference between quietly monitoring a free agent market and loudly monitoring a free agent market?
Loudly monitoring a free agent market would be calling up Ken Rosenthal and being like, "Hey, Kenny, long time no speak. It's going well, and we're going to sign Blake Snell," and hanging up the phone and waiting for the tweet storm. Or it would be tracking an airplane and telling John Morosi about it.
Man, that feels so
I
long
don't
ago.
know how much. I know it's like ancient history at this point. I don't know how much I see how Blake Snell fits into the Blue Jays plans. They have 6 starters right now already, and that's basically putting Alek Manoah as your 5th guy, and then like Tiedemann is maybe a guy. You have a bit of a logjam right now as far as pitching goes, so I'm not exactly sure where Snell fits in here.
Yeah, I think it makes sense from if you want to make an impact addition. Blake Snell's probably the best player remaining on the market. Is that fair to say? I think that's probably fair to say.
Unless you want to include Bellinger, maybe. But I mean, as far as upside goes, I feel like Snell's upside, even though it's been 2 MVP years sandwiched between a bunch of so years, or rather Cy Young years. It's kind of those two, right? Those. So if the Jays want to make a headlining move, Snell seems like about as realistic an opportunity as you're going to find, but kind of feels a little bit like a bit of a redundancy. Not that that stopped the Blue Jays for the rest of this offseason as far as picking up guys that are kind of a bit of a mirror image with pre-existing roles.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you can get a guy like Blake Snell that, Alek Manoah at the bottom of your rotation or you say Kikuchi at the bottom of your rotation shouldn't stop you from making that addition. And for him, like, I mean, obviously, the walks thing is a little bit would be helped by how good the Blue Jays defense is, right? So,
Well, what would it? Because obviously, if the Jays defense is so strong, you're playing with guys that play to contact. But if Snell's not going to throw strikes and going to avoid contact, I feel like that's a little bit almost counterintuitive to how it would best be able to utilize him, if that makes sense.
I mean, like, any pitcher that walks a bunch of guys, like it's not gonna like having a good defense like is gonna help any pitcher. So it's not really, I guess, exclusive to Snell.
Well,
But as for like,
do you
like if he
because
walks a guy,
Snell is so dependent on strikeouts and walks. So would that not make him almost like the exact opposite of what the Jays are looking for?
I mean, like I don't think it hurts. Like obviously like a guy who, gives up a lot of balls in play is going to be helped by the defense, but it's not like, the you turn down a guy who strikes out a bunch of people because you're like, "Oh, our defense is so good." You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I mean, I would really like the ad. Like he's obviously very good. I think the length thing is a little bit overblown. Like he pitched into the 6th inning 21 times last year. Like Kevin
Yeah.
Gausman pitched into the 6th inning 23 times last year.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, if you want to make that comparison, like, he can get you 6 for sure. Like, obviously, he didn't go beyond 6 all that much, but at least he, 21 times into the 6. Like, that's like around a top 30 number as
Yeah.
far as like MLB starters go, and it's kind of in the same territory as like Dylan Cease, Spencer Strider, so that obviously kind of makes sense. Same type of pitchers there. Yeah, like I said, Gosman only did it 23 times. Sonny Gray only did it 22 times. Bradish was 21, like Zach Eflin 20, Kodai Senga 20. So, like it's not like he's totally out
You're
of his depth because
yeah.
obviously I see a lot on Twitter and people are like, "Oh, he'll only be able to get you 4 innings." But I that's obviously not quite true.
Well, yeah, you're gonna get a guy that's in the same ballpark as a bunch of other quality pitchers because he's a quality pitcher. Listen, I mean, I'm talking about this doesn't make sense for the Blue Jays from a stylistic standpoint. It's Blake Snell. You get Blake Snell on your team, you're happy, right? But I just wonder if I'm the Blue Jays, if you're just putting so much investment into your defense that grabbing a guy that doesn't use his defense very much just doesn't fit the MO of this front office. Maybe they just want a guy that has a bit of a different look. You know, they've got Kikuchi, who's a fireballer lefty. Obviously, Snell throws gas too, but he's not really in the same stratosphere, I would say, in terms of velocity, right? He's a little bit kind of a couple ticks below Kikuchi. So I wouldn't describe them as the same type of pitcher.
No, I mean Snell is like just so unique. Like I don't even know if there's like anybody that's really that comparable to him
Yeah.
as far as that goes. So, he'd be a fun ad, and obviously it's all about the offense at this point. And when we recorded on the weekend, we are like, oh, Jorge Soler's about to sign, and I don't even has there even been a baseball signing since we last recorded?
It's been a lot of whispers, a lot of rumbles, not a lot of pen to paper as far as I can tell. But
What
I mean,
was
that's about to be expected. It's the middle of January, right?
what was the last? I guess Jordan Hicks was the last signing, but
I think so, which tells you just about all you need to know about the state of MLB's offseason.
that Jeff Passan article where he's like, things will open up after the arbitration deadline. Well,
Well, so much for that.
not so much. It's like
Not quite.
when do you think all these guys are going to sign?
It's gonna eventually, like maybe beginning of February. I'm trying to think back because obviously the like prime example of an off season nothing happening was the Machado and Harper year, where Harper was on the cover of MLB The Show and they went without a cover until probably late February almost. So if that's what it's going to be, maybe it drags on into, the early parts of February. But the way that the league has structured spending as well, I think that was something that was really addressed last CBA. I cannot imagine that players are going to be particularly keen to sit around until basically spring training.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's tough. Like, I mean, obviously everybody makes a lot about Boris being the agent who's, he's everybody's agent at this point, basically. So like who knows? It's hard to really say. I guess it'll be, it's just a matter of whoever blinks first.
Yeah, which in this case you would think eventually a guy like a Bellinger, and we heard a lot as well during, I think it was Cubs Con, a lot of the players asking to bring back Bellinger. So it's not like there isn't pressure coming from not only the fan base from across Major League Baseball. I would figure that things will pick up, but we're in a bit of a dead zone right now.
Before we get out of here, Blake Snell, what would you give him as far as a contract if you're the Blue Jays?
If I'm the Blue Jays,
So
I think
so the Fangraphs projection has him at 5,140.
yeah, and I was gonna say, I think you're probably looking at the Kevin Gosman deal as a floor, which is 580 or four. It's
He
it's
was
not quite
110.
triple digits. Is it 110? Okay, it's 110. I know it was about 22 per year. I just couldn't remember if it was 4 or 5 years. But I think that's realistically your floor. You're probably going 10 to 15 over that at the bare minimum. So you're probably looking at 125 ish. I think that if you're talking 125, you're probably happy. If you're going beyond 5 years with Blake Snell, you're starting to get into some sketchy territory, as would be the case with basically any major league pitcher.
Any 31-year-old
And
pitcher, yes.
exactly right. And then if we're talking, you know, AAV, I think that the Blue Jays could comfortably land in that 25 range. But again, we just saw they were willing to spend a boatload and then some on Ohtani, and Snell is not Ohtani, but they clearly have the financial resources to go out and get a guy and spend some money. So if they're interested in getting Blake Snell, they can get Blake Snell.
Take the however you want to value the contract, not 700 million, like we'll say 456 million, because that's whatever CBT purposes, $456 million contract that Ohtani get. You take that money and you spread it between a pitcher who profiles similar to Shohei Ohtani, perhaps like Blake Snell. Like if you close your eyes and squint really hard, then you can kind of see it.
If you close one eye and then close the other eye,
You can imagine them kind of being the same. So you take Well, I mean, I guess Blake Snell was a better pitcher than Shohei Ohtani this year. So you take that 456 million and you get Blake Snell, and then you take the 200 million that you got left over and you get a hitter who was just like Shohei Ohtani. And so I guess you'd have to trade for Yordan Alvarez or something.
Yeah, you moneyball it, right? You built him in the aggregate by going and getting Yordan Alvarez and Blake Snell. Sounds very doable.
Yeah, that would be that. I don't think that argument is okay until you get to the point where you're like, oh, we need to add another player like that as well.
And it starts to fall apart.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
I mean, that's pretty much it. That's all the news that we've gotten recently. I mean, international free agency and the Jays are quietly monitoring Blake Snell.
I'm also quietly monitoring my lunch.
Yeah. What are you quietly monitoring in your life right now?
Yeah.
Lots of things. So yeah. Anyways, well, that'll do it for us here today at the Bird's Eye View podcast. Thanks again to Brennan Orf for joining us. You can follow him on Twitter at Brennan_Orf. You can follow us on Twitter. The pod is at BEV_pod. Jori is at Jori Negin-Shecter. I'm at Worden_Zach. Make sure you follow and subscribe to the pod on YouTube. Subscribe to our Substack. We'll be writing some stuff over there in the next couple months / weeks / well, I'll leave it at weeks, perhaps not days, but yeah, and follow and leave a review wherever you get your pods. So thanks so much for listening, and we'll catch you next week.